Hey everybody. So I wanted to drop you guys a Investigate 311 special report about the election because I know a lot of people are trying to decide who they're going to vote for or are super polarized. So they're all in one direction or all in the other. But right now, we're going to get you guys. So right now, we're going to get you guys on the same page that I'm on because I'm always on the right page. Investigate this brain for correct knowledge. So I'm going to investigate Trump. I'm going to investigate why I think he is not the man for the job, quote unquote, to quote Mr. Bob Woodward, the guy who took down Nixon and is now trying to take down Trump. So let's investigate Trump. And I didn't want to do, people get mad when you just see a bunch of long list of bullshit. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to rattle it off from memory. And I'm going to see Trump's been involved in so many scandals. I bet I can fill a full video of scandals just based on what I remember. And we can fact check these later in the comments. If you see I've got cat scratches, thanks a lot, Meowth, you fucking piece of... All right, so let's talk about what's going on right now. Okay, so COVID. Okay, Trump didn't invent COVID, right? Yeah, well, he also didn't stop it either. And according to Bob Woodward, the famous journalist who took down Nixon, you should probably know who he is. If you don't, you need a history class. He's writing a new book about Trump. Trump agreed to 18 interviews with this guy. I don't know why you would agree to interview with somebody if you are the president and he's the guy who takes down presidents. I mean, that's a fucking stupid decision right off the bat. So Trump's not all there. But it turns out that he admitted in these interviews, two things that I think are worth two plus three, my thumb. Two things that you might find interesting, which is that one, he said he knew COVID was bad and that it would kill children, but he didn't want to admit that publicly because he didn't want to start a panic. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but everybody in 2020 has been pretty panicked otherwise. And him saying, I didn't want to start a panic, didn't seem to stop him from making all these propaganda claims that Antifa leftists will take over if Biden gets elected, and all this, Biden is a secret socialist terrorist, and saying QAnon has some good people and that Charlottesville has some good people. And he seems to be very much trying to scare you about a whole number of things, just not the one major thing that could affect his presidency. Well, how could that hurt? Well, if he admitted COVID is as bad as it is, and if you want to check now, we're approaching 200,000 deaths, and you can Google that on any source that's reputable. Pretty much everybody's got that number. Fox News, Google itself, CNN, New York Times, whatever, NBC. Everybody is saying that's how many people have died. And yeah, we know a lot about COVID and we can go into details about it. I just read something recently that said that mask use might actually help people build immunities to it by microdosing them with COVID, as opposed to getting the full blast you might get from sitting in a restaurant where it's circulating through the air systems. So basically, just COVID check, wear the mask, try to stay inside, try to social distance. And by stay inside, I mean stay inside your own place. If you have to go into an office, social distance, definitely wear the mask. And I mean, if you're going to congregate, do it outside. And try not to prolong yourself in places where people come and go, like airports or restaurants and places like that, where you're getting a lot of different people, and just one contaminant can make the thing jump from one person to the other, see contagion if you want some more visual representations of a virus jumping across the globe. Anyway, Trump knew all this, got briefed on it, lied about it, said he didn't get briefed on it, and then tried to say masks don't work. He was very wishy-washy on whether or not to wear masks. We never went into a full lockdown. Half of America is like, we're all locked in here. The other half's like, it's fine, it's nothing. And because half of America is ignoring it, the virus keeps spreading. And they're like, it didn't affect me, so it's not that bad. And as a result of that, it just keeps spreading. So because of his misinformation, the lack of plan, and the lack of the fact that he didn't do anything besides lie about it, it just keeps spreading. So those deaths are on his hands. And if you want to say, well, Trump, what could he have done? He could have come up with a plan. He never did. He never came up with any plan. He just said that all of the existing plans, shelter in place and masks, would make people look weak, so he didn't want to do them. So he didn't come up with a plan, and people died, and then he lied about how bad it would be over and over and over. And he's still holding rallies with people without masks. And Herman Cain, former presidential candidate who gamers should care about because he used a Pokemon song at one of his rallies, got COVID from one of Trump's rallies and died. So he's, I mean, he's one of 200,000 people who have died because of this. And that guy was a Republican who went to a Trump event. Was a high-profile Republican. Maybe not the coolest one in the world, but he still died. He still shouldn't have died. And Trump's responsible for not having a plan and also misleading the public, trying to downplay it. Now, why'd he do that? Because, all he cares about is the stock market. It's the best thing he's got going. He hates COVID because it, affected the economy because everything was shutting down, which it needed to in order to prevent COVID. But he doesn't care about human life. He cares about the numbers. That's the real fucking conspiracy here. Investigate that shit. He didn't want to cause a panic because he wanted to be able to claim the stock market was great. That's why even at the RNC, he basically said the entire time, the economy's great. Forget about COVID. It's almost over. It'll be great again. We can make it great again. The other thing that I would like to talk about is the whole leftist Antifa, Black Lives Matter, riots in the streets and things. Apparently, there's about 9% or something like that, a very small number of protests actually turn violent or have violent events. And we could blame the Black Lives Matter protesters, but we could also blame people coming from the outside, anti-Black Lives Matters protests, read racists, who come in and basically start shit, or anarchists who get in there and act like the Joker and just want to set stuff on fire. I saw a video of a bunch of anarchists burning a homeless guy's stuff. Those aren't Black Lives Matter protesters. There's no reason to do that. Most liberals want there to be affordable housing or free housing for the homeless. It's NIMBYs and not in my backyard people who are anti-homeless. Anyone who's hurting the homeless isn't a liberal protester. They're just a fucking asshole. Anyway, so he's been painting Trump's been painting all of the Black Lives Matter protesters as all liberal, socialist, whatever. And then he's also been painting Biden as this crazy liberal socialist, even though Biden's the most moderate, middle of the road. And let's everybody compromise. Everybody on the left is I wish he would go further. I wish his climate plan went further. And Biden's the most ho-hum, vanilla, boring candidate we could have because we wanted somebody that could appeal to everybody, and he's who won the primaries. So that's where we're at. So our choices are between a guy who wants to divide us, Trump, for his own benefit, and for Biden, who wants to bring people together. And we can do a whole other video about Biden and the weird stuff that he does, because he's not a perfect candidate, but I'm trying to make the point he is so much better a politician and a leader and a role model, even, in spite of his gross, weird stuff, that it's not a comparison. A lot of people are saying it's between two bad candidates. It's not. It's between one mediocre candidate who will probably do an okay job and Donald Trump, who is letting 200,000 people die without a plan or an apology. He's doing it on purpose. That's just recently. In the same Bob Woodward book, if you don't know this is crazy, but one of our journalists, Jamal Khashoggi, or Jamal Khashoggi, depending on how you say it. I mean, I'm not going to attempt to do a Middle Eastern accent. That could get me into trouble. But this guy was basically beheaded by Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, who unfortunately shares the same nickname or same acronym as me, Matthew Brendan Shore. Great, I'm MBS and he's MBS. I'm not the guy who beheads people. That'd be a real conspiracy. Because, look at this. Does this look like where a Middle Eastern prince lives? It looks like where a fucking incel lives. Anyway, the point is that MBS had a journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, beheaded, cut his head off, lied about it, said, I didn't do it. Trump says, I believe him. And then in Bob Woodward's book, he admits that he helped MBS, the bad MBS, the worst one than me, get away with it. He's like, yeah, I helped him out there. He'd been in a lot more trouble. And these are folks who are murderers. Like, that's a straight up murder of a non-combatant. And Trump's like, yep, I helped him out. Because Trump loves the rich and powerful, and he hates the poor. The only thing he likes the poor for is voting for him, because he can trick every single conservative Christian, apparently, because every conservative Christian's been brainwashed into thinking liberals hate babies, liberals want abortions, so anything we do to them is fine. But the truth is, liberals don't love abortions. Liberals want women to have access to free health care and to have access to the health care that they need. They want everyone to be able to get the health care they need in a time of pandemic. That's all we want, okay? And if you stop caring about human life as soon as it gets born, that's not very Christian. Jesus never said anything about abortion, but he did say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And he also said it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Meaning, people who have accrued wealth have often done dirty, sinful things to get there, aka Trump, aka the Koch brothers, aka all of these assholes, every libertarian, basically, libertarian, not librarian. And, there's a lot of capitalist greed, and a lot of capitalism has the problem of screwing people over. It's like, oh, I got a great deal. I screwed over this merchant. Or, yeah, I just upsold this thing for way more than it's worth. How clever I am. That means it's a system based off of screwing people over so that you get the most money. It's like a game that's actually life or death. And if you don't think it's life or death, check out all the homeless people who have nowhere to go, who are literally dying on the streets. And they're not just, like Republicans would like to paint them. People who didn't work hard enough. Some of them are veterans who need health care, who are so post-traumatic stressed from combat, places we sent them to die for no real reason, like Iraq. Like, they're out on the streets. This stuff is all connected. That's the real conspiracy. The conspiracy is in plain sight, and it's what liberals are fucking telling you. Just connect the dots. It's not some fucking crazy QAnon shit where every person who's a liberal is some fucking pedophile. Like, find some evidence. Use the evidence that's in front of you. You don't have to dismiss every source that challenges your thinking. You're not right just because you... Stop justifying your point of view based on the shit that you've done previously. If your entire worldview is based off of trying to make yourself not feel guilty about the dumb shit you did, you're a fucking asshole and a narcissist. You're just too selfish. Fucking open your eyes, admit you fuck up. We're human. We're all human. None of us is perfect. Look at this. You think this is perfect? It sucks. I have to live with it. And you got to live with your mistakes too. Anyway, that's just a couple things. You want to talk about Russia? Let's talk about Russia. Even if you don't believe that Trump actively colluded with the Russians, which is like, okay, we don't have a lot of hard evidence, but according to the Mueller report, we have a ton of circumstantial evidence. And Paul Manafort and that other guy, the guy who dresses like a Batman villain, Roger Stone, like, those dudes are all up in this Russian business. They have all of these fucking connections. So maybe you can't tie that directly to Trump, but you can tie it to Don Jr., you can tie it to Paul Manafort, you can tie it to Roger Stone, you can tie it to a lot of people in his campaign and in his work. And then you'll get back into like, well, what about Hunter Biden? Where's the evidence that anything fucking happened with that? We know that Trump is going soft on Russia. And we know it especially because of the Russian bounty scandal that got swept under the carpet after all this other shit. So if you don't know about that, basically it turned out that the Russians had been putting bounties, meaning a price tag on an American's head. If you kill an American, we will pay you, to the Taliban. So Russia was working with the Taliban to pay the Taliban to kill American troops. And what did Trump do? Nothing. He didn't do anything about it. He didn't chastise Russia. He didn't admit that they did it, even though the entire intelligence community, the entire military that he's supposed to be in charge of, said that this happened. He didn't do anything. So if you care about the troops, it's more than what he said. It's what he does. He doesn't do shit. All he does is blame other people. So Russia is I mean, Vladimir Putin is a terrible, murderous son of a bitch. And the fact that Trump cozies up to him and cozies up to Kim Jong Un or whatever, like, these aren't great guys. These aren't guys that we should be getting along with. These are guys that we should fucking depose through coups and get rid of and save the people, if anything. I'm not for more warfare, but these are some fucking high profile James Bond villain assholes. And he's like shaking their hands and calling it a peace deal. And now he's patting himself on the back just today for a new peace deal he came up with in the Middle East that doesn't solve the conflict between the two primary warring people in Israel, the Palestinians and the Israelis. It's a deal that benefits and bolsters the Israelis and ignores the Palestinians as if they have nothing, no claim to the place that they've been fighting over this entire fucking time. So great job. He's great at declaring peace when he hasn't solved anything. He created a peace deal between countries that weren't at war. And that's also, I mean, he's done so many stupid fucking things. That's what I need to tell you. These aren't just random things. I'm not just I mean, this is random. I'm not reading off of fucking anything. This is from memory. This is all in my goddamn brain. He pulled out of the Iran deal that Obama set up because he hates Obama. Apparently, according to, I think it was Cohen's book, Trump paid an actor to look like Obama so he could yell at him because he's obsessed with Obama for whatever reason. Like, that's fucking crazy. People say he's not racist, but he's pretty racist. I mean, if you just go back, I was going to spend more time on this. The first thing he did when he got into office was try to create a Muslim ban, try to ban people visiting from Muslim countries. And that was rendered unconstitutional, but that was day one. That was his first fucking thing. He apparently refers to Obama as Barack Hussein, which is just another way of making him sound Muslim. He's the reason birtherism, aka Obama wasn't even born here, that came from Trump. And Melania was in there too, so don't act like she was, she's a hostage. She might be, but she's not great either. Oh boy. Kids in cages. Immigration, we have a crisis at the border, yada yada yada. We need a new immigration plan. That's all true. That's all true. That crazy caravan that Trump was talking about, that never happened. Where's that? The real crisis in America is that we don't have enough Mexican food. All we have is this like terrible Tex-Mex. I mean, Mexican immigrants come here where I am because we need you. But anyway, there was this policy that started under Obama in which some people were detained Homeland Security style, like Guantanamo style. And I think Obama did it with like under 100 people probably. I heard it was like 25 people or something like that. Trump, I don't know how many thousands of people he's put in these detention centers, but he's basically exploited this idea that Obama was using on some sort of honor system, or at least with some restraint, and had turned it into a fucking free-for-all where any person who crosses the border can be thrown into a jail. There was a report from a whistleblower recently that said that if you love conspiracies, here's a great one that you should follow up on. Some detention centers were experimental concentration camps in which women, like a woman, a mother, could be separated from her kids. Her kids are put in another jail where COVID is festering, and they are, Trump knows that it can affect kids. So we've got dying kids in cages, separated from their parents, some too young that when they were reunited, they don't recognize their parents if they're reunited because they didn't name tag or ID any of these people because now they have no way of keeping track of any of them. They're just put in cages like fucking animals. Now some of them, we're finding out, the women were given forced hysterectomies, meaning they were trying to sterilize these women. Like, if you play Mass Effect, it's a fucking genophage that they're trying to do. They're trying to sterilize and make sure that Mexican people can't breed. That's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard. And apparently, if the whistleblower report thing is true, then that actually happened, which is insane. So we're going to wait on reporting for that for confirmation. However, what is true is that there's kids in these detention centers and they're dying, families separated from one another. And if you think it's possible to wear a mask or social distance in one of these prisons, Trump basically has situations where people were getting sick and dying regularly because of their poor treatment. And you can say, well, they're illegals, so everything we do to them is fine. That's bullshit, because that's not how law and order works. Not in America. Even our prison systems are terrible, but even they are better than these detention centers. So if you think of how bad a prison is, this is worse. Okay? And some of these are asylum seekers. Some of these are legal asylum seekers. If you're coming from a war-torn country and you have the right to claim asylum because you have nowhere else to go, there's a process for that. You're not supposed to be thrown into a jail. And if people are going to keep coming to the borders no matter what, we need to have a better plan to deal with them, not just murder them or send them away. Just like we have a problem with our homeless in America, we need to think about these people who are disenfranchised. Not everyone is born on third base and pretends that they were born outside the stadium. Like, we got to stop listening to dudes like Donald Trump Jr. and even Donald Trump, who inherited all his wealth and bankrupted literally every business that he's been involved in. Fucking Trump Steaks, Trump University. All he does is scam people, rob contractors, and he's never proven. The only thing he's good at is lying. He can lie about anything. You can call him on any of these claims, and he'll just say, nope, didn't happen, didn't happen. And people are like, yeah, I believe it. And they're fucking dying at these rallies and getting sick. This doesn't even, I didn't even touch on Ukraine, the fucking reason we tried to impeach him. Everything points to the fact that Trump was leaning on the Ukrainian prime minister, or president, I'm sorry, president, to try to get information on Biden, which is, again, makes no sense, because why would he even have that? But that's how early in advance Trump was trying to scam this election. Now, you might say the Mueller report, the Mueller report didn't say anything because Bill Barr said it didn't. Mueller report, basically, because Mueller is such a by-the-book guy, he found it inappropriate for him to recommend that the president be prosecuted. But he basically created a dotted line that leads you to, please, Congress, do your duty and prosecute the president. But they didn't do that because it's a Republican-controlled Senate and they don't want to do shit. Mitch McConnell is one of the worst dudes in the world, and he doesn't like the government to function. And this is the result of, if you want to know why Congress is so fucked up, you can say Democrats are wishy-washy and they're always infighting and arguing and hate each other. And that's pretty true. But they at least want government to work, and they want people to be living a better life. The Republicans want government to fail so business can succeed. That's another thing. There's another thing. If you care at all about climate change, and it's happening, the entire West Coast is on fire, the ice caps are melting, fucking flooding and hurricanes left and right. It's getting hotter than ever. It's fucking science. It's stuff that you can look up and measure. Try doing it, not just listening to whatever the fuck Joe Rogan or Alex Jones tells you. Look this stuff up. Fact check me. Argue with me in the comments. But use real sources, not some fucking blog or other YouTube thing that's unsourced, baseless bullshit. I've got all this knowledge downloaded into me from actual sources. If you want the best fact checkers out there, go on Vox, because they fact check all fucking day long. Any of the political podcasts will be able to tell you this shit. The New York Times, CNN, you might think, oh, it's all fake news. Stuff that disagrees with you doesn't make it fake. You can watch this shit for a little while and not just turn it off the first time you get frustrated because it goes against your programming. Fucking think for yourself. Learn. Become media literate, and don't just believe the first meme or fucking video you find on Facebook. And I mean, if you see this video on Facebook, you know, I'll understand the irony in that. But I'm trying to pull shit from actual sources. I'm not bringing up any of the weird fringe stuff I've heard. This is all from actual sources that you can Google. You can fucking Google this stuff and find it on CNN or Washington Post or any of these places. It's been reported. You've just missed it because Trump's the ultimate fucking magician and is like, look over here, where he's literally fucking up the country with his other hand. It's frustrating, and it's frustrating to me, and I could go on, but I think you get the point. This video is way longer than I thought it was going to be, but yeah. So please, 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 even if you don't like Biden personally, even if you hate the Democrats, vote for Biden in this election, because I don't care if we get a regular, normal Republican president in again at some point at this point. Like, I didn't like Bush. I don't like conservative economic policies. I don't think libertarianism is right. I think these are all economic philosophies like trickle down economics that they keep saying work but don't actually work. There's no evidence that they work. They keep saying these people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. We can't just give handouts and shit. But sometimes when someone needs help, you have to help them. I don't know why we're vilifying help, and I don't understand why anyone who calls themselves Christian wouldn't want to help those in need. That's literally all Jesus did. And if you're trying to help the rich or unborn babies, but you're not helping your fellow man and the people dying in cages or dying on the streets, you're not a Christian. You're just fucking brainwashed by whatever the Catholic Church tells you. And if you were raised Catholic like I am, and I was, and you're somehow invested in QAnon, the Catholic Church is a pedophile cult. It literally is. It hidden. I'm not saying every Catholic priest is a pedophile, but everyone in leadership knew about the Catholic Church scandal, and we've all just like ignored it. Like, no big deal. It's okay because God. Well, guess what? That's not fucking okay. God wouldn't be okay with that. I don't think Jesus would be okay with pedophiles. Okay, and that's proven. Stop grasping at straws with QAnon bullshit. Use fucking evidence. That's all I have to say. Vote for Biden. You know, we can all hate on Biden the second he's going into office. As soon as he gets in there, I'm going to have lots of stuff to push him on and push him in the right direction. But we can't have a criminal, incompetent, evil, racist, stupid motherfucker like Trump in office any longer. Amen.